Uh, the way I got into poker, in the sense of what people are familiar with, that story starts in 2005. But even before that, and I didn't even realize it, but as a small child, I was playing Yahtzee, this dice game, and I think most people know Yahtzee. You roll these five dice, and I didn't even realize that was poker until I started playing poker. I went back and realized my whole life I was rolling dice, making decisions that are really based on the fundamentals of poker, with three of a kind, straights. Yahtzee was like the four of a kind that you would get in a poker game. So in 2005, I moved to St. Augustine, Florida, and I worked for this really big healthcare company, and I still work for them. And I was relocated there for an assignment. And in that neighborhood, which was fairly new to me, there was this friendly like poker game, and I think at the time, like the buy-in was like $50. And to me, that seemed like a lot of money because I didn't really understand poker other than Yahtzee. But I was told that it was a good group of guys, a great way for me to get to know some people outside of work. So I gave it a shot, and I donated my $50, and it was just a real good time. I have no idea what happened from a poker perspective, but just that feeling of being together and competing with cards as the basis for the fellowship was just a really exhilarating experience, for me. Outside of working and with my job, I travel a lot of stress with work, so it's just a really nice release to do something different with a group of guys, and it felt like really competitive and fun. And so I did awful. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was asking questions like, "What's this hand? What's that hand?" Uh, and so I did that for about 15 months, 15 to 18 months, and we met like on a regular basis to play. The games actually moved over to my home, and so as we played more, and this was all tournament style, it got more sophisticated where the structures got a little more disciplined. We started to come up with a ranking system. It became a lot more competitive. And I realized that it was really becoming a passion of mine because I really looked forward to it as a way to get together and to compete. And then I noticed that the games were dwindling. Like people weren't showing up for the games, and I didn't understand why. I figured like everyone just had busy schedules. But someone that was close to me said that, Joe, people don't want to come anymore because you've been winning a lot of these tournaments, and they just feel a little disenfranchised. And I realized like I didn't even need to play. I didn't need to play for money. Like I was just happy just getting together to do the competition, and I just really enjoyed that aspect of the game. But with people not coming, I realized that I had to take things to a different level. And so that's when I decided to take a shot, if you will, so to speak. And I made my first trip to not to Los Angeles, but actually to Las Vegas to play in an actual tournament. That was like what's considered a daily tournament, but for me, that was a big deal, right? To me, it was like playing in a more professional environment. So the first time I played, I was very nervous, and so I asked at the Caesar's Palace. I asked the manager, could someone that's more experienced just teach me how to play in a professional environment? Because I had no idea what I'm doing. And so they were very gracious, and they had some experienced dealer take me to the side and walk me through, how things work in a professional environment, how the structures work, and gave me some tips on strategy as well, which went completely over my head. So I went to my first tournament the next day, and I literally lasted, Wayne, for I think maybe an hour, if that. I got knocked out really quickly. I actually had pocket aces. I still got knocked out of the tournament because people knew I had pocket aces. Because I remember, and I'll never forget this, because you always remember the highs and the lows in life. Well, the low for me was when I got pocket aces, my body started to tremble, and I've never experienced that before. Like when I was playing in the home games, I never felt that before. Just felt very comfortable, but I was very uncomfortable, and I had this like rush of energy or adrenaline or something go through my body, and I had no idea what was going on at the time, and I couldn't stop. And people at the table were observing me, saying, "Oh, you must have aces, right?" And I said, "How do these guys know?" And then one time I had ace king, and somebody said, "Do you have ace king?" So they knew everything I had. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm way out of my league here." So I got knocked out really quickly, And it was such a low experience for me because, first of all, I'm embarrassed because I come all the way to Vegas to play in this tournament. I get knocked out like really quickly, and it was such an awful feeling getting up from the table and like walking out of that room and having everyone like I felt like everyone was all eyes on me. But I didn't give up, right? I knew that I got to give it another shot. So I signed up for another 150, I think it was the $250 buy-in for the next day. And the tournament started at 12 p.m. So this time I set my expectations, so it's low, so that I wouldn't feel as disappointed. So I showed up in gym clothes, which was a mistake because the Caesars poker room, which was close to this nightclub, I guess it doesn't exist anymore. It's where the sports book is now. It was like an enclosed room. It was very very cold back there. I had no idea. So that was a mistake. I had flip-flops on and shorts and a t-shirt. And then I also, I bought tickets to go see a comedy show. Danny Gans, I'll never forget. I think he's dead now. But I heard he was a great comedian. I thought, hey, you know what? I'll go see his show. Maybe I'll last for 2 hours, and I'll go do a workout like immediately afterwards. I had my shoes in my bag. So what ends up happening? So Wayne, you're not going to believe it. 4 hours into the tournament, I'm still there. And I think what saved me, because I was so cold, literally, like every 5-10 minutes, I had to get up. I had to go stretch, move around because I was cold. Like I was blowing into my hands. And so I think that kind of saved me because that blood flow getting up, it kind of eased my nerves a little bit. And I made it deep enough in the tournament where I got so lucky. I actually got a royal flush, right? I've never had a royal flush since, by the way. And people say that usually you don't even get a royal flush in that kind of environment. So I accumulated enough chips where I made it to the final table. I missed the Danny Gans concert, and I finished in 4th place. And that was probably a mistake for me because, it's probably the worst thing that could have happened to me. Because I had this expectation that, okay, if I set my expectations low and I just stay focused, that I'll get another royal flush, I'll get another good hand, I'll make the final table. And for me to make in the thousands of dollars was good for me, never having done like a tournament at that level before. So that was kind of my foray, if you will, into the more professional scene. It was really exhilarating. I actually felt validated. And it's just a different feel. Like when you're working and you're going through the slog of the everyday, and to literally go in, buy one time into a tournament, make a final table, you feel really good about yourself. It's a feeling I'll never forget. I'll take it with me forever. So now when I think about some of the experiences that I've had where I've played against, very well-known players, which, people in the community would say are accomplished, and when you're playing in front of a lot of people in a big audience where there's a record of it, there's definitely an added pressure. So when I started to play on stream, or if I played in a WPT event where I'm being filmed, at the beginning I was very self-conscious. But I could say with a high degree of confidence now, I don't think about it any longer. Like I forget it's around me. It doesn't bother me from that perspective. I actually look forward to it because I know I have an edge now because I'm comfortable with that environment, and I can tell if other people aren't, especially in a tournament environment where they're forced to be at the table and they know that there's cameras there. I'll give you an example recently where I did have an experience where the camera created an experience for me which I still think about today. So it was the Win Championship, not this past year, but it was in 2022. It was the first time they did it, the $10,000 buy-in. And I was at the feature table. And I remember I was excited about it because I was experienced in playing on camera. But I experienced something new that I hadn't experienced before. Because when playing, this is the first time playing in a major tournament on camera where I can't rebuy. And so I had made the $10,000 buy-in. We're on day 2. And I'm excited because I have some pretty good players at the table. So Brad Owen was at the table, where I had an interesting hand against him. And there was also Chris Moneymaker at the table. And having not played with them, I just got called to go to that feature table. I've never played with them before in this type of tournament setting. And I made I guess you could say, an error, if you will, in that I made a decision that cost me a lot of chips, where I had a better hand. Instinctually, I believed I had a better hand, but because of the camera and because I didn't want to get knocked out of the tournament, I made a decision that was different than I would have made if there was no camera there. I'm very confident in that. And so I made a very conservative play the whole line from the flop all the way to the river. My instincts were telling me I needed to call Chris Moneymaker's overbet. And sure enough, I realized, because of the delay 30 minutes later, that I did make a bad play. Chris Moneymaker told me afterwards that I'll be disappointed in my play because he said if you had an ace-queen, you were better off. And then, because people were watching it, I was getting text messages saying, how could you fold that? You were so far ahead there. How could you put him on 2 kings, because there was 2 kings on the board, so I figured he had a king. And it was a bad play. So in that particular instance, I felt a little bad because a lot of people were talking about it. But it was a good experience. You live and learn, and it's just, I feel very privileged to be in that experience anyway. But it was definitely a humbling experience for me. Okay, so in this World Series ring event, which I was a little starstruck because there were some notable players in the field, I was really excited to be part of that. And there's 3 hands I remember that really helped to elevate my confidence and also my chip stack to give me a shot, to not only make it to the final table, but to actually win the event outright. So the first hand was middle of the tournament. I have a few $100,000 in tournament chips and feeling really good. And I get a decent pocket pair in position. I have pocket 8s. And the player to my left, I just had a sense for how they were playing and what range they were playing. And they made a really aggressive move because I raised, and they had a very similar chip stack to me, and the player went all in, which I was really surprised. And this is right before the break, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I had all these thoughts, half the table gets up to leave, everyone's walking around, there's like a cacophony. It was so noisy in the room. But I filtered all that out. I thought to myself, geez, I got pocket 8s. Do I really want to commit my whole tournament life here? Because I wasn't sure. So I asked the dealer to give myself time. I said, can you just count that stack? And that gave me time to reflect. So I literally went back to that starting hand. And I thought back to how they played it, how I played it. And my instincts were that he either has a pair that's lower than me, or he's got 2 overcards. Because I'm thinking, if he had a really strong hand, because the board, we saw the flop at that point, I just felt like, I just wasn't feeling it. So I made the decision to call this all in. And so I was looking for the bad news, and he shows pocket 7s to my pocket 8s. And so I made a good decision. Obviously, it wasn't 100% certain at the time when I made the call, but that was pivotal for me because now I had a lot of chips at this level of the tournament. I was really super comfortable. And that literally, propelled me, to the final table. And so the final table, which was 9 people, started on day 2. And so I didn't sleep so well that night, knowing that, geez, I'm actually at the final table for a ring event. And one of the players at the table was Sean Yu. Sean Yu has won, I believe, around 8 World Series rings. He's won a bracelet. And so when I was looking at the media attention around this event, Sean Yu was definitely the favorite to win this event. The writers were saying he was going to win. He was actually the chip leader going into the final table. I was somewhere in the middle for chip stack. If I recall, Sean Yu had close to 900,000 in chips, and I had just under 500,000 in chips. And it's unbelievable, but the second hand, and you got to run good in these tournaments, right? So yes, you have to make good decisions, but I didn't sleep great because I was thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to get through this. I didn't sleep great, but I did rest at least. And I was very calm and focused. The first hand I get is ace 10, which is not a terrific hand, but at a final table, not a bad hand. So Sean Yu raises, I call, a couple other people in the hand. The flop comes ace 10 7. So I'm thinking, geez, I've got two pairs. This is amazing. Sean Yu's acts before me, and he puts out a pretty sizable bet. My instincts, based on having played with him, he was at my table the day prior, were that he obviously has something because he's not raising with nothing, either overpair or who knows. My instincts were not to slow play this, so I decide to go all in. The other two players fold. He instantly calls. I thought, oh my gosh, what does this guy have? He got upset, overpair. He actually had 10-7, which is amazing. So I'm in really good shape with my two pair. I end up at this point now becoming the chip leader after the first hand at the final table. I literally rode that chip stack into a heads-up situation where my final hand was 6-7 of diamonds. And the player I was playing against was a pro from the East Coast. And when I think back to how that cadence was going against him as we were battling heads up, he wasn't playing what I would call overly aggressive. Like with premium hands, he wasn't overbetting strong, or with weak hands, he wasn't overbetting. He was calling. And so it was really easy for me with my chip stack to play hands and to see flops. So thankfully, for this particular hand with my 6-7, I found out later he had ace-king. So he made a raise, and with my 6-7 of diamonds, I call. I end up flopping a straight, which is so lucky. And he's got the over cards with ace-king. So he makes another bet, and I thought about it. I went into the tank a little while. I was thinking about it, and I just felt like based on the way this guy's playing, and the fact that he's betting again, because usually he was playing pretty carefully with his hands. He wasn't, like I said, playing overly aggressive. I just felt he had a decent enough hand that I could go all in and get some action. So I go all in. He immediately calls me with ace-king. So we flip over the cards. My straight holds up, obviously, and I win the tournament. And it was all numb at that point, winning that tournament. And, again, I'm looking at this ring here. I got really lucky, and yes, I made some good decisions throughout the tournament. There was literally one instance, so for people that play tournaments and they haven't won a tournament, whether you're amateur, obviously I don't have to say this to the pros, but for the amateurs and you're wondering, do you have to get lucky? Well, yes, you have to get lucky. You have to get good hand combinations. But I also had to hold my cool a lot throughout the tournament because there were a couple instances where I should have won hands and someone got really lucky against me where, it put me into a real tough situation from a chip perspective. And I could have went on tilt and I could have made bad decisions, but I didn't. I stayed calm, cool, and collected. The way I get calm, cool, and collected, I have to stand up and I have to go for a walk and not feel sorry for myself. And I literally did that, and I got lucky in the tournament. I just feel blessed to have won that darn thing. Now, this was in December 2019. What happened in December 2019? Well, COVID-19 happened. And I was in China in December, just before that tournament. And there was rumors when I was in China that there was this virus floating around. Now, luckily, I never caught any virus when I was there, but I literally came directly from China and I played in this tournament. And then we all know 2020, the whole world was disrupted, not to mention poker. And so for me, I never really had a chance to compete for 2 years because everything was shut down. So for me, I kind of felt sorry for myself because I really felt like I was on this high. I had this momentum, tournament of champions, all that got canceled. And it was like, air coming out of the balloon, the wind out of the sails, whatever you want to call it. The iron wasn't hot anymore to strike. But still, that didn't deter me. And in 2022, 2023, poker started to come back. But again, who cares about the timing? I really feel blessed to have been able to have won that. And I'm telling you, whether I win again or not, I'm still have a lot of passion for the game. And I'm going to be candid. I do want to win more rings and more bracelets. But because of my career, I don't have a lot of time to play. So it's not like I can put in hundreds of games, but I'm definitely going to go out there, and I'll put this on camera. I will win a major tournament in the future. I don't know when it's going to be, but I know I'm going to win, and I'm going to make it my life journey, if you will, from a poker perspective, to try to do that. And if you don't put it out there, you're never going to do it, right? Commerce Casino means a lot to me because this is where I cut my teeth in the what I'll call the higher stakes poker cash games. The Commerce Casino, for those that don't know, is considered the one of the most action-packed poker rooms, and it's definitely the largest poker room in the world. Not in California, not the United States, anywhere in the world. And I've had the privilege, because of my travel, to literally play poker rooms all around the world, literally every continent. So I've seen what good looks like and what bad looks like. And every casino could obviously do something better. But for people that never leave a casino, they don't realize, they don't have a reference point for what the rest of the world is like. And I have really fond memories at the Commerce. I've lost some money here. There's a phrase that, life experience is the most costly tuition. So this is where I cut my teeth playing at higher limits, and I would say against some of the best players in the world for cash. And it's given me what I am today from a poker perspective because of that environment, because of those player situations. I've learned a lot, and it's given me a lot of confidence to do what I do today. And so I really feel privileged, to be able to live near the Commerce and to be able to compete and play here. So I was so excited when I heard the announcement that the Commerce was going to host the Bally's live stream. That's really exciting for me. It's very personal for me, and I'm really excited to be able to compete here again when the games get started.